Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. Today I'm going to be talking about Airfix's recent re-release of the 1/72nd scale Jaguar GR1. As we all know, rather than being a vintage classic, this turned out to be a bit of a classic Airfix balls up, as the fuselage was actually that of the Jaguar A. That led to the withdrawal of the kit and a rather costly and embarrassing set of refunds. Now, I've mentioned in my Tuesday talk and midweek model meet that I don't think this is quite the disaster some have said, and today I'm going to show you how to fix the kit so you can make a GR1A from what's inside. As with other vintage classics, we have a single bag containing all the sprue frames. Under that we have the usual Airfix instruction booklet, and within that the cartograph decals. So here are the fuselage pieces that have caused all the problem. Now, in all fairness, Airfix themselves have never released a Jaguar A. This kit originates in 1970, and it was always a GR1, right up until Airfix went bust in the 1980s. It was released in conjunction with Tomy and as an MPC kit, but always as the GR1. Now, if we move on to the Hella Humbrol era, where the injection moulding was done in Trun, France, new parts were created to make the Jaguar A, the fuselage and forward nosepiece at the very least. Now, as both the GR1 and Jaguar A were both released by Airfix and Hella after that time, it means that the correct fuselage tooling did still exist up until at least 2004, the last release of the Airfix version as a GR3. But where those toolings are is anyone's guess. Anyway, back to the kit itself, and the main difference that's immediately obvious between the two marks of this classic ground attack aircraft is the nose, which is slimmer and more pointed than the RAF version. The other area is the lack of the distinctive rectangular radar warning receiver on the tail instead of the single small pointed tube on the Jaguar A. Other than that, the fuselage is very much early 1970s Airfix. Some raised detail, pretty much nothing in the cockpit area, and large, intrusive injection moulding gates. The next frame is for the Jaguar's stubby wings, which Airfix moulded in one piece each, with large sections that insert onto the top of the fuselage. Honestly, not a bad design choice. Underneath, they feature flapper-on actuators and very little, if any, sink marks. Not bad at all for its age. Next up is the first of the stores frames, which also has the rear horizontal stabilizers. We have the slightly chunky rear bomb fins moulded separately from the two-piece bombs, and here is the Ferranti ranging system chisel nose, which means you can't just make this as a Jaguar A, since the replacement for this part is not included. Moulding here isn't bad, with little flash and pretty crisp parts overall. More bombs. You get both standard and retarded bombs in the kit, which is quite nice, and there are also some of the cockpit components here, like the ejection seat and cockpit floor. There's a bit more flash on some of these parts, and the wheels have not suffered the ravages of time well at all. Again, we have more store parts here, but also a lot of fiddly bits, including a pilot and what passes for the rest of the cockpit tub. Clear parts are minimal here, just the two-part cockpit canopy. The current plastic Airfix uses here is very clear, but it's still in a 1970s mould, meaning there is a fair bit of optical distortion through the thick parts. Now, there's not too much to say about the excellent cartograph decals. They have the usual superb colour intensity, register and clarity, and we know that they'll be easy to use and have great opacity. Okay, let's get this build started then. The first thing we need to address is the nose. Taking the chiselled window for the laser, we can take a look at how much of the nose we need to remove. This basically fits so that it's flush with the bottom of the fuselage and slightly levels out the top, making it less pointed. Now, before we shorten it, I'm going to cut off the lower elements of the Jaguar A equivalent to give us a clean base starting point. I'm just using my nippers here to slice these off as cleanly as possible. Once done, I'm using the nose piece to estimate where I need to cut on the nose, but erring on the side of caution. You can always remove more later, much more easily than adding it back. I'm just using my nippers once again to trim the nose down, and then using that cut down fuselage as a guide for the other side. We can then check this with the nose piece. The important parameter to check is the width of the piece rather than the height, since we'll need to build that top up slightly, but the sides should be seamless. We can then start the cockpit. I'm going to be doing this aircraft in flight, so the pilot will be hiding the lack of detail in the office here. The floor and back piece slot together, but you need to put the ejection seat on at the same time since this determines the angle of that rear piece. A fair bit of cleanup was needed on my example for it to fit, and this whole process is rather fiddly and it feels like it really doesn't want to come together. But once you've got it, it's pretty robust. The whole assembly can then go into the fuselage, though once again the fit is a bit, well, ambiguous is probably the best word for it. As you can see, the pilot will hide some of what's lacking here, but we'll paint him before adding him, so it's time to get the other side on. We can then get to adding the nose piece. With some sanding you can get exactly the right fit for this width-wise, which means the actual end piece of the nose will fit a little bit proud of the joined fuselage, whereas the bottom is flush, though it might look like it's hanging down a little because of the removal of those lower areas of the fuselage before. When dry, your nose should look something like this. What we have to do now is blend that into the fuselage, and I'm going to do that using sprue glue and a small palette applicator. Now of course, you can use any filler or putty to do this, but I prefer sprue glue for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's less likely to crack than traditional fillers, especially when applied in thin layers, and secondly, because it's polystyrene, it cuts, sands and takes paint, etc. in the same way as the rest of the kit. As you can see, I'm filling the underside hole I made in removing the French equipment first, before moving on to blend in the other areas of the nose. I'm also going to address the seams and areas where the huge injection gates damage the main fuselage pieces, and in all honesty I think that the general quality of fit of these pieces and the amount of work needed to blend them together are actually worse issues than Airfix supplying the wrong fuselage version. It's not terrible, but it's enough to suck a lot of the joy of making this kit out of the build. Given the fit of the fuselage halves and the fact I still had my sprue goo out, I decided that now was the best time to put the wings on, and fill any gaps now. I pre-glued both wings and fuselage, and these go on without any problem, but to 1970s standards. As I said before, I think this is fine as a design choice, and if engineered today I'm sure that would be the end of it, but as you can see there are huge prominent gaps left on the upper fuselage here, so it's on with the sprue goo once again. Now I just want to take a moment to thank all of you who have supported me directly through YouTube memberships and Patreon. This really does keep the channel going, and without you it would be very difficult for me to be able to continue doing this. Now if you're only just seeing your name on here for the first time, it's because I update this monthly, and if I've prepared some videos ahead of time then there may still have the old list on, even if the list has been updated since then. Don't worry though, your name will get on the list and will continue to appear throughout your support. If you are considering supporting me, YouTube channel membership is by far the easiest way to do this, since Patreon is becoming a more challenging platform to engage with. Whichever you choose, however, I absolutely appreciate your contributions, and don't forget to come and check out the private members Discord, which you get access to at any level. In order to do just one round of filling, I also put the low stabilizing strakes on. As well as the air brakes. Front undercarriage doors. Rear bay doors too, the latter of which fitted really well as you can see. You can see I've already added the engine exhaust cans as I try to add the rear of the fuselage here too. Working out the best way for the fit here is actually the hardest part, it actually goes on pretty easily. The underwing pylons were also put on. And the cannon fuselage ports added next. And then it was time for filling and a whole lot of sanding, which was pretty tedious and I'll spare you from. Here then instead is the result of all that, and as I used white sprue goo for the filling you can see exactly what remains of it. Now of course, this area around the nose, both on the top and underneath where we blended in that GR1 nose is pretty obvious, but you can also see there's a lot of this bottom joint to make it passable, and also on the top wing and fuselage joints. And again, I think this is a much worse part of this vintage classic than the pretty small matter of correcting the nose and the tail RWR. But maybe that's just me. Please do let me know in the comments section down below what you think. So speaking of the RWR on the tail, let's go back in time here. This feels a bit more fiddly than the nose, but overall it's less effort since there's less sanding and reshaping to do here. You can clearly see how when this tool was created they took the GR1 fuselage and adapted it, since there's this rather obvious seam line on the tail, and the first thing we need to do is to remove that. Next we're going to remove those French elements so we can just have a clean tail. This requires both the nippers to trim the parts off, and the blade to carve the elements that extend back into the tail. Now if we take a look at plan drawings of the Jaguar A and GR1 side by side, we can look at exactly where the RWR sits on the RAF Jaguar tail. We can also look at where on the tail has the same length of the RWR as here, and that allows us to measure that on the tail and cut a strip of plasticard to that length. Here I'm just checking that length on the model and in its correct position. Holding that in place, I can then cut a small piece of plasticard for the rear as I'm making a sandwich of 3 pieces to go over the tail. With that just clipped in place, I'm then using another small length of plasticard to get the rough size, and then the angle of the piece needed for our front sandwich fillet. Once that's determined, I'm tracing that across as carefully as I can with my knife. Then that could be cut with nippers and checked against the tail once more. Those pieces can then be glued up and presented back to the fuselage as one piece before being manoeuvred into the correct position. You can also see I primed the rest of the aircraft prior to this point using off-white primer, in this case using a Citadel Wraithbone spray can. The top of the sandwich can then be added, and once dry the ends can be chamfered down to create the right aerodynamic profile. Back to the front of the aircraft, and the pilot has been painted and put inside the cockpit, and other pieces like the aerials have been added and the front of the canopy. Then it was just a matter of masking all of this up with Tamiya tape, a process that is much faster to say than do, though the transparencies on the Jaguar are pretty easy to deal with. I should also say that to add the canopy I used UV curing resin, as it's very strong and 100% clear. Then it was a matter of priming the newly masked canopy to match the rest, and get on with painting and finishing the model. So let's have a look at it. I actually really like this build. I think it's a shame that Airfix withdrew the kit from sale, because the issues the incorrect fuselage present are really smaller than the general build issues of this kit, and neither are anything that most experienced modelers can't address with just basic modelling skills. Yes, you could design 3D printed parts to fix these issues, but I wanted to show that with nothing more than plasticard, sprue glue and a bit of work, you can make a nice little GR1 worthy of its ancestry. Now, is it the best Jaguar ever made in this scale? Absolutely not. Is it a decent enough kit for a vintage classic release? Yes, it is. As expected, the cartograph decals are superb, although I would have preferred one wraparound camo scheme in the box rather than two 3-shade patterns, but that's hardly an issue, just my opinion. So the re-release without adequate checking was unfortunate, but if you did get one of these kits, it's a pretty simple matter to make what you bought it for anyway. If you need plasticard, sprue glue, spreaders and sanders, then I sell all of these in my shop too, so please do go check that out at mansmodelmoments.com, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff for you to peruse there too. But what do you think of this release and kit? Did Airfix do the right thing with drawing it, or would you like to see it back on the shelf so you can try a bit of minimal kit bashing yourself? Please do let me know in the comments section below, and if you enjoyed the video then I hope I've earned a like on the video, and maybe a subscription too. And if you do subscribe then please do click the notification bell and set that to all so you'll know when I upload further videos like this. As I mentioned, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video as well. I do read each and every comment posted on my videos, so please do go down and leave your thoughts in the comments section. All of this interaction is absolutely free and only takes a few moments of your time, but it really does help a small channel like mine. Thanks for watching. That's all for this instalment of Man's Model Moments. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel for more like it, and share this video with others you think would also enjoy it. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and if you're feeling generous then I also have a Patreon, which is absolutely the best way of helping me to grow the channel and produce more content like this. With that, I hope you have plenty of modelling moments of your own, and I look forward to welcoming you on the next video.